Aside from the Empire, Trajan, Julius Caesar, the Legion, Roman Bath, Caesar's Gallic Wars, what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, they've given us these 6 little homemade cards that I just mentioned, made by me, Loki the Gamer. These are 6 Magic the Gathering fan cards based off Civilization 6, Roman edition. We're talking about 1 legendary land, 2 leaders, 2 unique builds, and 1 card based off a leader's agenda. In Rome, do like Romans. No, that's not it. In Rome, we will have roads, and as you can see from my chart here, roads in Civ 6 translate to what? Because there is no such thing, there's nothing equivalent, there's nothing geographical about Magic the Gathering, so I had to use my imagination. There's one other Civ or two that actually dealt with roads, and every time that happens, I do it in a different, kooky, strange way, just like continents and other strange concepts like that. So I'm very proud of how I turned roads into a concept. It's just like roads just go on and on and on, and they all lead to Rome. Well, I made sure that the concept of roads was actually a chaining concept that could go on and on and on. So it's really cool what I did with roads. I think we'll see more about that when we look at the legendary land of Rome. There is the concept of a city. Of course, many civilizations out there actually have powers that relate to cities, either their own cities, bonuses, conquering cities, and whatnot. So yeah, the concept of a city as an entity has often translated into lands. So a city is kind of the same as a land, but it's also been considered a creature sometimes. And sure enough, for Rome, I treated cities as creatures. More on that later. The concept of conquering a city is akin to combat damage dealt to an opponent, and when a creature dies. So since I made the decision to treat cities as creatures, conquering a city stands to reason would be combat-based, so when a creature dies or when you deal combat damage to your opponent. So when you go over their creature's head. There'll be the concept of gold. As always, gold equals treasures. Amenities equal exalted. I use the good old exalted keyword that gives a bonus when a creature is attacking alone. And you'll see this exalted ability will be more relevant for Rome than any other civ that has used that equivalent, because Rome will usually have one big huge fat creature. More on that later. There will be the concept of food, housing and food, and that translates to either food tokens or creature token generations, and I chose the latter. So Rome will be creating some creature tokens whenever they get food bonuses, and there will be a bonus that applies to barbarians. So yes, Rome is quite adept at fighting barbarians, and that would translate to protection against barbarians. The color scheme of Rome is, well, it is the only one for which I did this, but given how far-ranging there are, how it's just complete as far as societies are concerned. So it is all 5 colors. It's the only time that I've given a civilization all 5 colors. I've created a bunch of 4-colored ones, but never 5, so Rome is the only one. The Roman Empire, well, in Civilization, has the ability all roads lead to Rome, and here's what we'll talk about road. So excited to share that with you. All cities you found or conquer start with a trading post, if within trading range of your capital. Now, I didn't use that, the concept of the range. It was bad enough that I managed to use the concept of roads and roll that into a card. I did not use the concept of trading route range. But yes, they do get a free trading post, and also start with a road to it. Your trade routes earn +1 gold for passing through a trading post in your own cities. So yes, the whole road thing, the free road thing, is what I focused on to make my Roman Empire card, which is like this: a legendary land rare that says, when a Roman Empire enters, put a road counter on it. Obviously, we'll see how those are relevant in a minute. You can also tap Roman Empire to put a road counter on target land. And as far as activated abilities, that's it. It doesn't even tap for mana. By itself, that is. And now the juicy part. All roads lead to Rome. Whenever a land with a road counter is tapped, you may tap an untapped land you control. If you do, add 1 mana of any color. So that's what allows the process to go on and on and on, like a road that goes on and on and on. A chain reaction can trigger. And let's do the math. So let's say that you do that. You tap Roam to add a road counter on another land. Well, you've just tapped Roam. Don't forget, Roam itself starts with a road counter. So that act has triggered Roam's own trigger ability. A land with a road counter was just tapped, so you may now do what Roam says. You may tap another land, and then you get to make 1 mana. So you've tapped essentially 2 lands, Roam, which then allowed you to tap another one, and made 1 mana. So 2 lands made 1 mana. So you made a deficit. 2 lands only got you 1 mana, but at least it's a mana of any color. So think of this a little bit like a filter land. You know, the kind that says pay 1 and tap to generate 1 mana of any color. So it's no worse than that. Actually, it's so much better. Don't forget that this can kick off a chain reaction. It is a road after all. Let's say that the land that you tapped when you use Roam's trigger ability had itself a road counter also. Then the triggered ability triggers again, and you may tap another land to generate 1 more mana. And if that land had a road counter, then you can keep going, tap another land to generate 1 more mana, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, you may have tapped X lands, including Roam, that started it all, and generated X minus 1 mana of any color. So it is one massive process of mana filtering. So you've tapped X lands and made X minus 1 of any color. That's a pretty good deal. And it gets even better. Don't forget, this process was started by you using Roam's activated ability, tap to add a road counter. But let's say it didn't start that way. Let's say you tapped some random land to generate mana, and that land happened to have a road counter on it. The same thing will happen. That land allows you to trigger Roam, and then you can tap another land. If that land had a counter, then you can tap yet another land, and so on and so forth. So you still tapped X lands and generated X minus 1 of any color, but you've also got the original mana from the land that started it all. This time, you kicked off the chain reaction not by using Roam to add a road counter, but you tapped some land to generate some mana. You've got that 1 mana. So essentially, you've tapped X land to generate X mana. X minus 1 of it happens to be of any color, so you've got nearly perfect mana fixing, and you didn't actually lose any mana. You didn't actually do any mana filtering. So really tap X land and get X mana. So truly amazing, but only if you are patient with your Roam, if you allow yourself the time to build a network of roads, of putting several road counters on your lands. The question is, when are you happy with your road? When do you stop putting road counters? Because don't forget, when you tap Roam to add a new counter, you run a deficit of mana. You tap X land, you do trigger a chain reaction, but you tap X lands and make X minus 1 mana. So when are you satisfied with the length of your road, and you no longer feel that you need to put extra road counters, and you start using the other technique instead? You just tap lands with road counters to trigger that chain reaction, and you tap X lands and make X mana. One of them somewhere in the mix happens to be Roam, and you use Roam for that reason, as part of the chain reaction where you tap X and get X. When is the perfect time for you to stop using Roam to expand your network, and when is the perfect time to start using Roam to just generate mana like any other land with road counters as part of the chain reaction? That's a cool decision to make. Or maybe on a given turn you don't actually need all of your mana, so then you're free to put an extra road, so get a bunch of mana, but also put an extra road for future use. So many options, so many different scenarios in which this land could totally be useful and fun. And notice it doesn't say lands you control, so you can totally put roads on your opponent's land, even though they are likely to tap those lands for mana during their turn, so you'd better have some abilities or some instants to sink that mana into, otherwise that mana will go to waste. But yes, by putting roads on your opponent's lands, you could get that chain reaction started when they tap lands. Always good to think outside the box with this land or anything else. And it absolutely fits in a 5 mana deck because of, once again, the insane mana fixing. You need that when you play 5 colors. So there's my Roman Empire card. All glory to the roads of Rome, and I'm very happy how that turned out. Let's take a look at the first Roman leader created in Civ 6. It was Trajan, the one who looks just like Julius Caesar in Asterix, of course. Trajan's column says all cities start with an additional city center building, which is usually a monument. So very straightforward, very simple. You get a free thing in your cities. Now don't forget what we said at the beginning in the overview. Cities are often treated as lands in my project here, but in this case I decided that cities would be creatures. So I made Trajan's column not trigger upon landfall when you get a new land, but rather trigger when you get a new creature. So let's take a look at Trajan Optimus Princeps. He is 4 colors, so yes, if you use him as your commander, that's fine, but you won't be able to use the other. Julius Caesar is the one with all 5 colors. So Julius Caesar is meant to be the main commander of Rome, and Trajan would go in his 99, or maybe not, maybe just build Trajan as a deck of his own. And he is an uncommon human praetor soldier, of course. I used the praetor creature type, which is normally reserved for crazy, messed up, I don't know what they are. They are the type of weird demon, strange calamity and magic. The praetor creatures are really quite fascinating in magic, but in real life, praetor was a word reserved for Roman emperors or Roman politicians, so it's perfectly suitable to give him the praetor creature type, even though he's not some crazy Cenobite looking creature from Hellraiser. So I'm quite happy about how that turned out. And he is 6/6 for just 4 mana, 1 of each except green. And his Trajan's column ability says, whenever a non-token permanent enters under your control, put your choice of a vigilance, haste, menace, hexproof, or road counter on it. So I almost take it back. So yes, I said that the entity of a city would be treated as a creature, but it's really just a permanent. So whenever any permanent enters, you may put a bonus counter on it, and you will very often end up with a haste counter on an enchantment, a menace counter on an artifact that isn't a creature, so you'll end up with weird stuff. But of course, just don't choose that. Hexproof is a choice, for crying out loud. So if you just brought out a non-creature artifact or an enchantment, then just pick a choice that makes sense, like hexproof. And if you just brought in a land, again, make a choice that makes sense. Well, of course, if you have a living land deck, a deck where you turn your lands into creatures, then maybe a vigilance or a haste counter could make sense, but and even a menace. But realistically, you might want to put hexproof on your lands, or, oh, look at that, road. I did make road counters as a possible choice. So there you go, you've got all sorts of abilities for all sorts of permanent. Just pick whatever is relevant, whatever makes sense, and whatever you happen to need. So his Trajan column's ability triggers for cities, and really cities are not creatures, as I said in the overview. They're really potentially anything. Any permanent is a city as far as Trajan is concerned. And now we can move right on to Julius Caesar, the other leader of Rome. We had to wait a long time before they finally added Julius Caesar. He's a classic in the civilization world, and therefore they felt that they had to give him to us, and there he is. His ability is, of course, Vini Vidi Vici, and he just makes gold when conquering a city. And here, indeed, I definitely treated the concept of a city as a creature. So whenever you kill a creature, that counts as conquering a city, and whenever you go over the opponent's creature's heads and damage them, that also counts as conquering a city. So yeah, you make all of that gold, and he also gets combat bonuses when fighting barbarians. So here's Julius Caesar, Dictator Perpetuo, all 5 colors, 7/6, human praetor warrior. He's rare, and his Vini Vidi Vici ability says, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a treasure token, so there's your gold, and amass humans too. So I decided to use the fun amass keyword from, what was it, Amonkhet, Hour of Devastation, I believe, and then reused later in Lord of the Rings to make Julius Caesar create a massive growing army. And there's nothing really in his power that compelled me to do that. He doesn't really do anything to increase the size of his army, but it's Rome. I felt that it was appropriate that I gave Julius Caesar a way of increasing his army. He's supposed to be all about gold, yes, and conquering, but really making a Roman legion seems too perfect for Rome, so I sort of thought outside the box and used a mass. And then, of course, you and creatures you control have protection from barbarians. Now, if you remember, there is a cool thing that you can do, because there is a Chinese leader that does something against barbarians. You can turn other creatures into barbarians. Actually, no, you get to sort of manifest cards from various libraries, in a way, and turn those manifested cards into barbarians, and then gain control of barbarians. So, yeah, It's a whole thing where King Shi Huan, I believe, a unifier, gets to spawn barbarians and steal those barbarians, and some of those can be cards from other players' decks. So it's a really cool thing. You can totally put King Shi Huan unifier in the 99 of a Julius Caesar deck. That's really cool. Because even though you sometimes give barbarians to your opponents with the King Shi Huan ability, you're not afraid of them, because you and your creatures have protection against barbarians, so it's a thought. And yes, since Julius Caesar has all 5 colors, if you ask yourself, yes, but can King Shi Huan fit in my deck? Yes, of course he can. Julius Caesar has all colors. So any other card that I've designed in this whole giant Civ 6 project can fit in his deck. And yeah, a very decent body, 7/6. I didn't give him trample, that was bad enough as it is. And yeah, the cool ability of amassing humans, and I made sure that that stayed relevant in the rest of the cards. Speaking of which, the Legion is the unique unit of Rome, and I gave them a mass to represent the fact that a Legion is, it can't just be one card. It can't just be one creature, one dude. It's got to be an ever-growing, Legion. So in Magic, the Legion can build forts. So they have a certain amount of charges and they can build forts. I also involved that in the card. You can sacrifice it to go tutor a fortification. So yes, the good old concept of the fortification as we first saw in I forget, Future Sight or something like that. So yes, an older set of Magic, there was I think one fortification card. Never found out why they didn't do more. It's a very simple concept. It's kind of like a land aura, but in the form of an artifact. So why not? If there was wild growth in the very first set of Magic ever, why not make it into an artifact that can target a land? And to everyone's surprise, they brought that back in the Fallout series with a single card. And I decided to bring it back as well, so you will see other, I think 2 fortification cards in my project. And not only I made some extra fortification cards, but I've got the Legion now that can tutor for them, so yay, fun time. And sure enough, it will amass, as I've said. So the Legion is a common human soldier. For a white and a black, you get a 2/2, and when this creature enters, amass humans 2. And then there's the sacrifice. Sacrifice this creature, search your library for a fortification artifact card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. That's it. Very straightforward and very true to its nature. The unique infrastructure of Rome is the Roman bath. Well, in Civilization 6, it's just called the bath. But it felt weird to just call it the bath, so I decided to honor what kind of bath it really is, because there is a thermal bath in the Hungary set, I believe. So yeah, I called it Roman bath. And it replaces the aqueduct, so it is a district, but not your typical kind of district that gets buildings. It's a utilitarian district that just does something for you. So it does everything that an aqueduct normally does. It gives you extra housing, but you also get extra amenity. And since you also get extra food, I made sure that it gave you creature tokens. As we've said in the overview, food will mean creature tokens. So there you go, the Roman bath is a land aura, like all such infrastructure that go onto the land. It is a blue and 2 generic, uncommon, and sure enough, it has Exalted. So there's the one instance of Exalted in this set, but it certainly is not the first instance that I made of it in my entire project. So who was it? Which other Civ made it? Brazil. Brazil was nuts with the Exalted. They generate a lot of amenities with their two, not one, but two amenities related districts. So if you stick that in your Brazil deck, that will be quite suitable. But also it fits rather well in a Roman deck as well, because you will tend to have one big juicy creature. It'll either be Julius Caesar himself, so he might attack alone quite often, so give him the Exalted bonus, but also your army, perhaps your human army that keeps growing, might attack alone, and you don't really care that they die because you'll get another one and another one. It just keeps coming back. I have a Saruman deck, and believe me, my Orcs army keeps coming back. I generally don't care too much if they die. Usually it dies for a purpose, and I don't mind because it keeps coming back. So yeah, maybe your Roman human army will attack alone quite often. So there you go, you've got this one instance of Exalted, and maybe you want to stick more. Maybe that could be a concept, especially if you find a way to give your one attacking creature trample. If you Voltron your one attacker, then Exalted could be the way to go. And finally, the Roman Bath also gives the enchanted land, pay X and tap the land, create X white 1/1 citizen creature tokens. So there you go, that's your food bonus that translates to creature tokens. And yeah, I just want to say, maybe the enchanted land that you targeted might have a road counter on it, so just tapping it for that ability means that you'll get to start your chain reaction. So that reinforces the fact that the land that gets tapped to start your chain reaction doesn't have to tap to regenerate mana. It could be some other ability, such as the ability granted by a land aura. And now finally we can move on to the card that I molded after Julius Caesar's agenda. It is called Gallic Wars, and if you've seen my Gaul video, now finally the name of that bonus card makes sense. The name Gallic Wars, the name of the agenda of Caesar, inspired me to create this Gallic War card in Ambiorix's set. Of course, in Ambiorix's bundle, I called it Ambiorix's Gallic Wars. And now here, in the Roman bundle, I called it Caesar's Gallic Wars. So there are two Gallic Wars in my project, and they are both sagas. So it really feels cool, so it feels like they're staring at each other from both sides of a divide, like a little mini cycle instead of, a complete cycle of 5 cards. It's a little mini cycle of just 2 cards, both Gallic Wars, both named after leaders on opposite sides of a real historical conflict. So go check out what the Ambiorix's Gallic War saga does in my Gaul set. In the meantime, let's take a look at Caesar's Gallic Wars, and you can bet, of course, that it'll have something to do with barbarians. That is Caesar's agenda, after all. He hates barbarians, and he loves to fight them, and he likes it when other people also fight them. So you are his comrade in arms if you fight barbarians with him. So the first step of the saga says, well, first it costs a black, a white, and a red. Rare card. And the first step says target creature becomes a barbarian in addition to its other types. So you can target any creature. It could be yours, could be someone else's. You typically want to target someone else's, you'll see. Step 2 is the same thing, but this time up to 2 target creatures become barbarians in addition to their other types. And of course you'll notice that these last indefinitely, it's not until end of turn. And finally, step 3 is a board wipe. Destroy all barbarians. So there you go, you turned other creatures into barbarians knowing that they would die. So you get to do some delayed removal. So up to 3 creatures that you want to get rid of, you turn them into barbarians, and then unless your opponents manage to get rid of your saga before it blows up, you get to destroy all barbarians. So, and of course, don't forget, if you've got a King Shi 1, if you have turned other creatures into barbarians, then you get to do something nasty with those Chinese cards that allow you to make even more barbarians. So again, having China and Rome together could be some nasty combos. But there's more. This saga isn't just about barbarian hate, it's also about rewarding those who fight barbarians. So it says, each player who didn't lose a creature this way creates a treasure token. So there you go, Caesar kills all barbarians, and then those that did not harbor any, he considers his friends, and therefore he rewards them with a treasure. Including himself, of course, because he will definitely not have any barbarians in his deck, so he will get a treasure for not having lost a barbarian this way. So there we go, there's the board wipe of Caesar's Gallic Wars, and like other board wipes that I've made, I like to make them into sagas because it's a delayed action, and you get to, first of all, you have time to defend against it, you have time to come up with a disenchant of some kind, but also you, as the player who controls it, the one who plays it, you get to play favorites, you get to decide who gets hit the most by the board wipe, so it's interesting, there's politics involved, so it reminds me of what I've done with, I forget, was it Arabia had something similar also, yeah, so it was very nasty, it both wiped creatures, but it also stunned lands, and once again, just like that, you got to play favorites, and you got to save a few lands and creatures. So you get to tell people, okay, well, I can save your lands and creatures, but what's in it for me? What are you gonna do for me in exchange? So I love the politics of that. Which doesn't work, of course, if you play 1v1, which is usually my case. All the games I play are usually just against my girlfriend, but I do know that it's meant to be played 4 players. Commander is supposed to be a pod format, but, you know, we don't get out much. And even though we at home don't really have much use for the politics aspect of the game, I still do keep it in mind for those who get to play in a typical 4-player pod. So there we go, I made cards like that. And that completes the Rome set. Now, I would have wanted to add a bit more amass. I really wanted it to be amass-centric, to even have triggers, like whenever you amass, something happens. But first of all, there are enough cards out there that do that, and since a Roman deck is either 4 or 5 colors, then you have access to pretty much all of them. And let's not forget that the amass gimmick is something that I added in there, that I sort of crowbarred my way into that concept. There's nothing really that called for it, that was just me choosing to add it in, so I felt I really shouldn't focus on it all that much, even though I wanted to. There'll be other things in the future where I can do the amass as much as I want, I can amass the amasses. This completes the Roman bundle. How would you build a Trajan and or Julius Caesar? Would you use the treasure-generating power of Caesar to turn his deck into a treasure-centric deck? I know that there certainly are enough existing actual Magic cards out there, and I added even more in this project, of course, and since Caesar has all 5 colors, you've got access to really all of them, any of them you want to make that kind of deck. And if you use Trajan, which of his rewards are you more likely to get? When getting a new creature, would you focus on Menace, make a Menace deck, or Vigilance, or would you simply just use whatever suits your purpose depending on the state of the game at that time, or depending on the creature itself? So do let me know if you think that one of the Trajan's column ability was actually more useful than the others. So in the meantime, do let me know what you think. Loki the Gamer beckons you to like, kneel, and subscribe like usual, and I'll see you later. Tell me which Civ you'd like me to do next.